So let's get into this bonus huddle. I'm super excited to have Nicole Leffer back with us. She was here almost exactly 6 months ago. And oh my gosh, so much has happened since then. Nicole runs her own generative AI consulting company called A Catalyst and has already been hired by at least three huddlers to help enlighten, inspire, and train their marketing team. So, Nicole, welcome back.
Thank you so much. This is like my last time here was my favorite thing I've recorded. Don't tell anybody else that. Uh,
Of
so
course it
I'm so
was.
excited to come back.
Of course it was. Well, we have to top this. So, um, I was thinking about our last time together, and we really focused on just prompt crafting with ChatGPT, and obviously you keep making that an art form unto itself. But how has your approach to prompt crafting evolved with ChatGPT? And then, of course, we'll move on to other things.
Yeah, so a lot of it has stayed very similar. The fundamentals are still the fundamentals, but I'm constantly learning new strategies and ways to start incorporating. So they're more advanced ways that you can start implementing within your prompting. So things like asking the AI system to think step by step and giving it the steps that you want it to take and how you want it to think through something can be really helpful. I've learned that like throughout the conversations that really asking it to evaluate its own response and then improve upon it can be really helpful. There's strategies called using delimiters, which is essentially putting characters at the beginning and end of sections of your prompt. The same like special characters. I use 3 forward slashes in a row at the beginning and the end. And that gives like containers of content so that the AI can understand the differences between the content. If you want it to read something and use it as a reference, that it knows that's not the directions, that's the reference. So lots of different things. And also telling it to take a deep breath. And before it starts doing something, you tell it, say, take a deep breath and then do this. And a lot of that is keeping up with studies and research that's coming out and starting to incorporate that into my prompting strategies.
Oh my God. And why deep breath? Why would that even matter?
I don't actually know, but I think because I'm just guessing, and other people have guessed about what it is. But for humans to perform better, like if you just pause and like relax for a second before you jump into something, take the time to think about it, you'll do a better job. And the AI systems are probably because they've been trained on so much human interaction have probably picked up on that, but I don't know for sure. Maybe it really is just forcing them to pause and think it through before, but it definitely works. I mean,
You know, eh,
that was not my idea. I would never have thought of that.
that's okay. It's
That was research that came out, and now we're all doing it. So you're suddenly seeing prompts everywhere in the last few weeks that say, take a deep breath. That's because we
right.
all saw this research.
Well, and it's funny because I'm thinking about random. So we have a bonus huddle coming up or is it a career huddle? A career huddle with Jay Baer, who wrote this little book called The Time to Win. And it's all about speed to response. But there is such a something as too fast. Like if you order your food and it comes like 3 seconds later, that's a little too fast if it was something that was worth preparing and not fast food. So it's funny that this is sort of this notion. Speed
Yeah.
is important, but take a second. Okay. So
Also be polite. Like if you're nice to it, it does better. Say
okay.
please and
Wait.
thank you. Like actually, like I thought I've always done it because
Uh-huh.
I'm from the South and that just feels really, really rude when you're from Georgia, like
Right.
you live in Georgia. If you don't say please and thank you, like that's just the end of the world. So I just can't not. But it turns out that like Microsoft actually did a study on this and it actually improves the quality of the interactions and the results that you'll get if you use common courtesy and treat
And
AI
isn't
nicely.
that true in everything else? So why not bring that here? That is also amazing. And it's funny because I find myself doing exactly the same thing, naturally just saying, oh, would you please do this? Or could you think about it a different way? That would be nice. It's fascinating. I want to make sure that folks understand the delimiter
Yeah.
idea. And I didn't understand it until I saw your post from about a week ago on LinkedIn, and so this is going to get us into Dolly, but let's not talk about Dolly just yet.
Yeah.
But the post was about you provided a long prompt, and then you said in the prompt, read this blog post and create an image. And then you did the 3/ lines and you added the blog post. And at the end of it, you did the 3/ lines. So that's the idea of delimiters, just to be clear, right?
Yeah. And that way you can add different blocks of content. So like say you have the prompt, you've got your instructions and everything, but you want them to read a blog post, you want them to, the AIs, you want the AI to read your blog post, you want your AI to read your brand guidelines, you want the AI to read your persona information, and you want it to clearly understand which of these things is which of these things.
Right.
And that, like the blog post, if it has instructions in it, that's not instructions for the AI. That's what's in the blog post. By putting these, these characters on the beginning and the end to show that it is very unique blocks of the prompt and content reference, and you even title them so it knows what it is, it just helps it to really process and understand your prompt and be able to think through more complicated projects easier.
So funny thing on this one is, so I copied your prompt exactly, by the way. I copied it exactly, except I forgot to add the blog post. So then when I put that in there and I clicked enter, because I forgot that when you click, I clicked return thinking that would just give me a new paragraph. It didn't. It entered the information. It said, happy to do this, but you got to give me the blog post. So I thought, oh my God, brilliant. So even if you screw up because you said read the blog post, it knows to do it. Okay. So we're staying with ChatGPT for a second, and we're staying with written content. One of the things, what are you thinking about in terms of copywriting? And generating that. Let's talk about the tools that you're using beyond ChatGPT and the common mistakes that you see people making.
Yeah. So for copywriting specifically, ChatGPT is still my number one go-to, but I do also use Claude, Claude.
Yep.
So Claude is awesome also for helping with the generative AI, especially if you need to summarize longer documents into copy, things like that. Really awesome for that. And then I absolutely love using Microsoft Bing's Edge browser, or really Edge browser's Bing functionality that's built in. If I'm doing, if I have a document I'm working on and I need to generate copy to go inside of it, you can just have your document open in your browser, whether it's Word Online or a Google Doc, and then use the little Bing button and have side by side to have it help you with your copywriting.
Oh, so I want to go back to Claude. Love Claude. Oh my God. So, and if you're thinking about, well, why do I need Claude? So let's say you happen to write a book like I did, and you wanted to just for fun upload this book, which has 25,000 words. You can't do that on ChatGPT. So you upload this long PDF, and then you give it instructions like you would ChatGPT. And I did that. It's funny. I did it on our generative AI report where we did, man versus machine, which I know you're familiar with. And it gave me a great little summary that we could use as a blog post about it. And I didn't have any concern because it was all original IP to begin with. So it was just summarizing original IP.
And
okay.
The number one reason I use Claude is for those longer documents that you need to be able to use, or sometimes it can be better about thinking through certain analysis. I don't think that's a universal thing, but it's really good at anything around what skill set would be good for something. So it helps me to write the beginning of my ChatGPT prompts of who I would want working on the project. I actually asked Claude to help me write that part. It's really good at that. If you want to do job descriptions, things like that, Claude is really good at understanding who would be the ideal person to do this job and what skills do they need. But for most things, I still don't think that Claude is to the point where GPT-4 is, but for those couple of use cases, it is an awesome tool to have in your back pocket.
We do have a question from the audience, which is Claude any more accurate or or helpful? It hallucinates as well.
Every single one of these generative AI tools has the problem with hallucination, making things up. You have to fact check all of them. You cannot assume any of them are definitely going to be accurate at all.
Well, then do I have to, if you mentioned job description, should I be worried that, yes, if you are a time traveler, that would be helpful? I mean, that would be a good skill, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So it doesn't hallucinate that way, I'm imagining.
No, not quite that way. It just makes
Okay.
things up out of thin air.
Okay.
So,
All right. So going back to and sort of wrapping up this conversation on, and there's so much more to go into with copy, but we did cover a lot last time. What are the common mistakes that you're seeing when it comes to using Gen AI tools for copywriting?
yeah, there's a few. There's a lot, but the biggest ones I'm seeing are not providing the ideas. So just giving a very generic prompt that's like, write me a blog post on XYZ topic and letting it just come up with all of the ideas versus write me a blog post on XYZ topic and incorporate these ideas into your blog post, make it about this. This is the key points I want to make. Huge difference in what you're going to get out of it, the thought leadership, the authenticity. So
Yeah.
that would be the first one.
And let me pause on that one
Yeah.
just for a second and just put it in the language that I know. We're talking about intellectual property here, and we're talking about your ability as content creators to rise above and make it special. And you're not going to do that if those ideas are coming from the tools. However, if you have your ideas and you start with those, and then you want to take those and craft them faster, then you got it. And that's what that's what our content test showed. Although, that if you just ChatGPT only, even if you're a master at it, is only going to give you baseline information. However, if you have great IP, like an outline, for example, or you have quotes, for example, or you have research that you've done, anything like that, and then you can accelerate the speed of it. So it starts with good IP.
And
right?
you can do that really fast and easy. Like I absolutely love when I want to do thought leadership, I will go to the ChatGPT app, I'll use the little voice button and I'll just thought dump. It doesn't need to be coherently put together or organized or anything like that. ChatGPT is great at that. So I'll just thought dump all of those ideas into the voice part on ChatGPT. It transcribes them and then I'll use that transcript it gives me back, 3 or 4 minute long talking. I'll use that and say, now use this to turn into my blog post. So you don't necessarily even have to write anything. It doesn't have to be a lot of work to give it that thought leadership ideas, but not giving it any ideas to work from is the first thing that would be a mistake. The second thing that I'm seeing is not realizing you do have to edit it, iterate on it, go back and forth. It's not, it's not just an instantaneous, the first thing that comes out is usually every now and then I'll be shocked and I'll be like, wow, this is in ready to use form. But most of the time there's a little bit of back and forth, there's human editing, there's stuff like that. So it's not just ready to go. Yeah, that's a big one.
Can we just talk about that? This is a moment where if you don't have good editors that understand good writing, because I've noticed the tendency of these tools to use words that are affected, like utilized versus used. And if you take a look at any of these sort of things, they all tend to add more words than they should. Their choice of adjectives are pretty boring. They unless you encourage it to use a metaphor, they won't. And so you really need to be an editor and really think like an editor. So that's number two.
You can also take what it gives you and put it into a new chat that's an editing chat, like an editing prompt, and get it to improve and iterate on it too. So you don't necessarily have to do as much, but that first spit
Okay.
out,
Right.
not ready to go.
Right. So talk about that editing prompt, because that's
Yeah.
one I don't think a lot of people are doing. What does that look like?
Yeah, so my editing prompt, it gives it all of the skill sets that the most ideal copy editor would have. I tell it the type of content it's going to be editing, and I tell it that I want it to tell me the before, the after, and the reason for a change that it's recommending. Because I want to be able to decide. I don't want it to just rewrite with the edits
Right.
applied. I tell it, like, I want you to tell me where it is, what the change is, and why you are recommending this. And
Ah,
it will then come back. And then I put in those delimiters, here's the copy you're going to edit. And I delimit it so it knows the difference between the directions and the copy. And then it will spit back like it's suggestions, and it'll tell you, this is what you said, this is what I would change it to, this is why. And I would say I usually apply about 80 to 90% of its suggestions, and I will use that with ChatGPT generated content. I will use it with my own generated, my own writing. So maybe I write a really quick rough draft and it can turn it into much higher quality writing. I don't have to think through all of that.
and these, I'm imagining that you keep a running sort of Google Doc of
Okay.
your prompts for this, and this is
Yeah,
just
so,
another
and
thing
that's,
to be, right?
yeah, that's, it's a 2-second thing to copy it in. It's not
Right.
any, I just keep my Google Doc, that's my prompt library, open whenever I'm working in ChatGPT or Claude or any of these tools. It's always there. And so the things that I use a lot get copied and pasted in. And I also know what's in it. So like, maybe I'm doing a novel project. Maybe I've never done it before, but I know what prompts are in there that could just be quickly edited. And then the second I have a new prompt for a new project, it gets added to that document. So I always have it. So it gets faster and faster to be able to create these kind of.
Yeah, it makes me just a note to the CMO Huddles team. We're going to create a library of prompts because, and we're going to basically start stealing all of the ones that Nicole shares, and we'll be including those, not stealing, borrowing, because you've already put them out publicly,
Yeah,
right?
I only put out a very small fragment of
Right. But so for the
prompts. So
public
yeah.
ones, we'll put them
Yeah.
all, we'll aggregate them in one place, and then we'll start to, other folks will share it, and we'll all get better at this, which is the goal. We do have another question about, I am now using Mag AI, which lets me switch between ChatGPT 3.5 and 4.0, Claude, et cetera. It has pertinent personality. Any thoughts on its usefulness of Mag AI? Have you used it?
I have no idea.
Okay.
I've
All
never
right.
used it. No, there's so many different tools out
There's
there.
so many tools. So there you go.
So many tools to keep up
Okay. Well, and that's a great segue to the question of, because when you and I talked, there's all these plugins now to ChatGPT, and you had cautioned about adopting too many of these
with.
because it really is look squirrel kind of a moment.
Yeah.
So what's your story, and what's a rule of thumb for picking a new tool and deciding when to sort of invest energy into it?
Yeah, so I have a few rules around this. My philosophy personally is less is a lot more with AI, and you don't need a million tools, because the more tools you have, the less likely you are to be good at any of them, know how to use them, and actually use them. And especially for your team, like if your team has 20 different tools, they're going to use 0. If they have 1 or 2 different tools, they're going to use them all the time. So, it's much better to actually build a skill set in tools that can actually do a lot for you than have 50 different tools and you have to know which to use for what.
Yeah.
So that's my starting point. But when I am looking at new tools, I look at a few things. One, does this actually do something I can't do with one of the other tools? Like, is this something that, like, is there actually something about this that I cannot do with ChatGPT? That's usually the first go-to, because it can do 85% of what any tools out there can do. So like, I'd rather just use ChatGPT for a couple of reasons. One, because it's got longevity. It's not going anywhere anytime soon. Like,
Right.
we know it's there. So building the skill sets there, like, it's going to be, it may not be forever. It may end up being, MySpace. I have no idea. But for the time being, it is clearly not disappearing. So if I know how to use it in there, like, the tool's not going anywhere. The tools that are being built by the kid in his mom's basement with no funding, probably not going to be there in 3 months. And that's what so many of these tools popping up are. A lot of the people that are building these tools have no idea how much it costs to run AI. Spoiler, it's a lot. So that's a lot of it. So the first thing is, can a tool I already do use do
Right.
this? The next thing is, if the answer to that is no, who the heck is this company and what is their funding situation? Because if they do not have money, they are most likely not going to last. So you're going to invest time, resources, energy in putting a tool into your workflow. And if they're not going to make it, then, that's a lot of wasted time and energy. Also, like, do you trust their data security? Looking at the things like, how are they using your data? Who are they? Am I giving like a foreign country my data, or am I giving it to a company that has this locked down? Because that's important with all of this. And then, my own stack is a pretty small set of tools that cover the big things. I have ChatGPT as kind of my overarching main tool I use. I'll use Claude to supplement that where ChatGPT can't do it, and sometimes to just get secondary ideas. Bing and Edge, but Claude, Bing, and Edge I'm not paying for. Like those are inclusive. Although if I had a business, I would pay the $5 a month or whatever for the enterprise Bing stuff. If I needed enterprise security.
Right.
And then I use, if I need voice stuff, 11 Labs. If I have a video tool, a couple video tools. I'll use Descript and Runway, and I'll use Midjourney, although who knows how long I'll be using Midjourney with DALL-E. With that DALL-E 3. I mean, I still think there's utility to Midjourney,
Right.
not getting in DALL-E 3. That's really it. So voice, video, image, text, those tools cover the vast majority. Now, if I needed to do translation, I'd probably have a tool specific to doing translation, but that's it. I don't think you need 10,000 tools. And in all reality, a lot of the tools that can do the same thing as ChatGPT, or can do something ChatGPT can do, ChatGPT actually does it better. So 90% of the time, I find, even if you play with it, ChatGPT's version of it is so much better. So I don't see the point.
So we do have an ongoing list of a Google Sheet with a bunch of utility apps and tools that CMOs in our community have used and shared. But I think what we're going to do is we're now going to add Nicole's top 6 to that document. And you folks should be able to vote it up or down as you see it. Okay, you mentioned DALL-E, and I have to tell you, so I hadn't used it until yesterday when I was preparing for this show. So and I'm going to share my screen for a real quick second because this is amazing. Let's see. Before I share the screen, I would just want to do this premise. So I was looking for the prompt was Nicole's prompt for creating an image based on a blog post. The blog post was about our generative AI test where we did the man versus machine. And it was that was the man versus machine test. So in literally 3 seconds, this is what Nicole said, ask it to do 4. So I'm just showing you, this is the first one. There's the man, there's the machine. This is the second one. There were 2 others. This is a very elegant design for a blog post. Again, I didn't do anything else with this. Okay. Then we have this one. Then I said, for fun, all right, well, CMO Huddles is, our mascot is a penguin. So I then said, so create the same idea, but use penguins. So this is what it came up with. And it's like, oh, that's really cool. And then I said, okay, well, I need a square image. So create a square image. And it created that. Now, again, oftentimes for our blog posts, shame on us on renegade.com, we'll just use this, whatever, an image from, who knows, some image house, right? This is a lot better than the stock image. So I just wanted to share you. And by the way, I had never used this tool until yesterday. So, all right, how do I stop sharing my screen? I don't see how I can stop sharing my screen, but, oh, there it is. Got it. Stop share. So anyway, I wanted to do that. And now, since we're in DALL-E, and we're looking at those images, what kinds of things, and I copied your prompt, and we'll include the prompt, and we've already included a link in chat to that, and we will in the show notes. But What, you saw my images. What other things should we be doing when we're using Dolly within it to sort of iterate?
Yeah, so a few different things. One is you can just chat back and forth to make those adjustments, which you did, but you could
Right.
keep going with that. You
Right.
can also ask it to make you different variations of the same type of, use the exact same thing, but give me four variations. It's
Right.
not going to make you more than four, no matter what you ask. So that's one thing. But the other thing is like that was an example, and that prompt is asking it to come up with the idea itself, right? But you could also give it the idea. You can give it the context, or like, I need an image that represents X, Y, and Z. Or you could give it an actual prompt, like create me an image that has, a man who is doing a podcast. He's standing in front of a bookshelf. He's talking to a microphone. I want it to be a cartoon. I want him to have a thought bubble that says, CMO huddles, or
Right.
whatever you want it to be. You could be that specific with it, and then it will turn around and turn it into the ideal prompt for Dolly to do it. There are a few limitations with Dolly that we should all know about if we're going to talk about getting into it, though.
Please.
One being the spelling is not going to always be perfect. When there are words, it's going to be, it'll be hit or miss. Now, those of us who have been using image generation for a minute are like overjoyed with what Dolly is capable of when it comes to text and spelling, because it used to look like in any of these tools until Dolly 3 came out, it looked like Egyptian hieroglyphics meets ancient Greek meets like complete like gibberish. There was nothing that resembled text. So now at least it's just misspellings. It's not, that, but a lot of times you will have issues getting stuff spelled properly. So use words with limits to it. The other thing you need to know is it's not nearly as good at making realistic looking photos as a lot of the like Midjourney still is significantly better at making real looking like humans,
Right.
people, animals, whatever it is. So it's not fantastic about that. And you need to look out for like the tells of like, does the hand have 6 fingers?
Right.
Does it have
Right.
an extra head? Is the foot backwards? Like, those little things do pop up. Now that pops up in all of them, but it does still pop up. So just needing to be aware of those couple of things. But really just chatting back and forth, and it's so new. So like Dolly 3 just really hit our account. So we're all still learning how
Yep.
to make most of it. The other thing is if you do use Midjourney for your image generation, you can actually, when you click on the image, it will tell you the prompt it used. And you can take the prompt, because ChatGPT is going to write a prompt to generate the
Right.
image. You could copy that prompt and put it into Midjourney, and it may create you an even better quality image. Just forget the writing. Don't do it with
Right.
one that have writing in it.
Right.
The other
Yeah.
thing I love doing is taking my Dolly image, opening it in Photoshop, and editing what I don't like in Photoshop, because you have generative AI in Photoshop too. So if it's like 85% of what you would want, but you want to change like one little element, you want to remove the random word that's misspelled, just go into Photoshop, select it, type in the generative AI that pops up what you want it to be, how you want it to change. It could take a little work, but it's
It
pretty
does. And this is the big difference between Midjourney and so Dolly within ChatGPT was a revelation to me,
yes.
because Midjourney has been a journey. And I
Yeah.
do continue to believe that you want someone on your team who is truly an art director going into that tool and taking advantage of it. We had Kenny Friedman. He's amazing. He's an artist and he really knows how to do it. But again, for a blog post that I'm not worried about copywriting or anything like that, that I can,
It's
this
awesome.
is, it's awesome and
I
it's
love it.
so easy and there's no learning curve. Whereas
Yeah,
Midjourney,
that's what's so cool is anybody can get out of the box and iterate and change. Like you don't have to know how to write the image prompts to get good stuff. One thing I would caution, because these are like what this group of people is, before you are putting any AI generated images into your public facing content for your company, just make sure your legal team is cool with it, because they might be fine with your AI generated writing and not be okay with AI generated imagery. So just be
right,
aware of that on,
right. And
double check that one if you've never
there,
used it
I mean, the Supreme Court has already ruled you can't trademark these images. So that in itself tells you that these images you will not own.
Yeah.
If you care about owning the content that is on your website, then obviously this sort of puts this tools in a whole different way, except you can go to other places to get these images that have the same tools where you're paying a stock photo company for access. So it's just not as easy
Yeah. And
at
most
all.
companies are okay with it. I've just seen a lot more not okay with, like, the legal side, not okay with AI imagery. So it's just something to be aware of as a marketing leader.
And so is there anything, so other tips? So we talked about the tips for copywriting. Any other tips when it relates to image creation? Again, and specifically with Dolly.
Yeah, so you can give it like style. You don't have to just say create an image of XYZ thing. Like, you can tell it the exact style you want it to be in. You cannot tell it a specific artist, which I think is great that they built that in, but you can tell it, cartoon, whatever specifics.
Right.
And if you want to know, like, you have a style that is on your own website, like you always do it and you have no idea how to describe this to an AI system because it's just the art that, like, you've always created. You can go into the default model of GPT-4 in ChatGPT, paste in the images that are examples of the art, and ask it to write you a description that you could give to Dolly of the style of art, because now you can put images as part of your prompt. So it can analyze the image, go, this is neoclassical. I don't know anything about art.
Right.
But whatever it is, if you want to replicate a concept, you could ask it to give you that description so that you can get closer to it with Dolly.
Okay, I can't wait to test that. Oh my gosh. I mean, because that, having worked with, and I can think about it as like on renegade.com, we have various sections of images, and you could say, okay, look at this image, and now I want to replicate it in a different way for a different section.
Yeah, I was
Wow.
doing this for preparing a training for a client, and they have like very specific, like, kind of graphic art all over their website, and one of the problems they're having is they don't have that artist anymore, so they, like, can't replicate it. And so I put it into the vision tool and asked it to describe it, and how it came back, I was like, this cannot be a real style of art. I can't remember what it said, but it was like futuristic work cartoon something something. But lo and behold, I told Dolly to create something in, like, that same description, and poof, it looked exactly like the stuff on the website. And I was like, oh, that's
Yeah, I'm having a little bit of a pain moment in, sort of understanding the writer's strike, because this is a moment that just is, from an artist standpoint, the fact that you could do that is,
yeah.
oh my God. So we won't go there with the ethical questions.
There's a lot of, and that's also a lot of the reason that a lot of legal teams are,
Right. Talk to your
hesitant
legal
to
teams
use
before
this.
you do any images or anything like what we just talked about. Okay. So I know you're excited about Vision. I don't think I have access to it. It's in beta. Is that right? Or is
You should have
okay.
access to it.
Okay.
So to get to Vision, it's actually showing up when you go to your your paid ChatGPT account, you
Right.
select GPT-4 and you just select the default model.
Okay.
And now there is a little picture icon that shows up on the left side of where you enter your prompt. It's
Okay.
like where you actually go to enter. There's now just a little picture icon. And if you click that, you can upload images, or you could just put your cursor in there. As long as that's showing up on yours, you can put your cursor in there and you can just paste it out of your keyboard with a short keyboard shortcut. So if it's like a screenshot, you can just paste it in. You don't have to download the screenshot, upload the screenshot. Much faster copy and paste.
Nice. So I just do a screen grab, boom, drag it on to the thing. Well, that's cool.
Yeah.
Okay. And so the applications of this, I think we talked about, you could drag in your landing page of your home page and ask it to assess it and ask it to, what? I mean, what can you say, hey, how is this?
SEO,
Right?
SEO, conversion rate optimization, design suggestions, come up with a new image that we could put on the banner. What do you want? Like, it can see it like a person would be able to see and understand visually. Obviously, it can't click the buttons and stuff,
Right.
but can visually see your screenshot of your homepage or your landing page or your PowerPoint slide. So anything that you may want assistance on, it can see and comprehend. So it just becomes part of your prompt context.
And I'm really curious about that. Let's just go back to the example of do an assessment of our landing page optimized for, we'll just call it target audience engagement, right? And we're going to say our ideal customer profile, because we can't just say everybody. So we say
Right.
our ideal customer profile, do an assessment for this and make sure that, we can decrease our bounce rate and increase the path to say demos, right?
Right.
How do we trust its analysis? I mean, I guess
Partially where your own expertise comes in,
you would
right?
think.
Like you should know at least enough. Like a lot of this is to catch your own, like, I didn't even think about that in this context.
Okay.
You didn't notice it because it's your own brainchild or it's your
Right.
company thing. You've seen it so many times, you like miss the things. So it's not to replace your own expertise completely. You use your own logic, use your own analysis, use your own marketing expertise to go, oh, yes, these suggestions actually make sense. But also, you shouldn't just be randomly applying AI edits, period, or
Right.
just like you shouldn't at the person's edits, just like randomly be applying it. You should be A/B testing it. So this is a really good way to go, okay, now we have something to A/B test.
But I'm also thinking about like a CMO who's interviewing for a new job and they want to look at the top 5 competitors and they could say to this tool,
Yeah.
analyze these 5 websites and compare and contrast which ones are doing better at this. It could do that, right?
100%.
And it'd do it in a few seconds.
Yeah, maybe 2 minutes.
Oh, okay, because we're going to tell it to wait and we're going to be polite. Say,
Yeah,
take your time.
yeah, I do recommend like you don't put more than 3 images in a single prompt. If you need to do multiple prompts, I mean, it's like if you need to do more than 3
Right.
images, do like chain the prompts. So like here's the first 3, wait and tell me when you're ready for the next 3. Just it can prevent it from getting a little bit more confused about the images, and it really helps to not do more than 3 at a time.
Even just to identify the compare and contrast these 3, right?
Yeah.
Just at that, again, there's a lot that goes into, that we have a lot of CMOs on the transition team right now. I mean, it's, and they're preparing for interviews and people are asking for lots and lots and lots of insights more, and this may be getting into our next area, but, and it could take hours to prepare, but these tools could change that.
Yeah. Oh, completely. I mean, makes it much easier.
So let's talk about, so we've talked about how we could sort of use it in that way to sort of look at and challenge your current website or design of any visual thing. Let's talk about other things like the strategic use of it, right?
Mhm.
So again, I'm preparing for an interview and I need to look at this one brand, and then I want to look at, say, 2 others. And I
Mhm.
want to talk about the difference, understand the really unique differences, if there are,
Yeah.
between the 3. And
Yeah.
again, how
Totally
would
do.
you do that?
You give it the screenshots and tell it what you want it to do.
Well, let's
I
let's
mean,
I mean
that's
from
all
a
you have to do.
right, but so from a
Right.
strategic standpoint, are there any prompts that you've, from your experience, that you've done to help you get strategic insights?
So for that, like that exact use case, I've never done
Okay.
exactly that, but
Okay.
strategic in general is where it can really help to ask it to think about, like, I want you to think about this, this, and this in order, follow these thought processes, explain it to me, and then coming back and be like, now evaluate your response. And is there anything that like you could do better? Like tell it did a great job. Like always be, you did a great job. This is a fantastic start. I believe in you. You could come up with even better suggestions. Evaluate this and tell me how we could improve upon it. That can really help with a lot of the strategic stuff to get it better. Is there anything you missed? Like, please re-review this. Is there anything else that you didn't mention? Ask it to evaluate its response and put it in order of importance. All of that kind of stuff. Like asking it to really think through what it did is really helpful.
Right.
Also, regenerating multiple answers at each step to what it did and seeing what it said, because it may think about it a little different each time. And so you may get even more insights by just taking from the best parts of each generation.
Yeah. And then I'm thinking in terms of, let's say you have a philosophy, a philosophical structure for how you approach brand, for example, and you're all about Jeffrey Moore and crossing the chasm. You could say, okay, let's look at that from this standpoint, or
Absolutely.
right. Or you could be a big fan of Renegade Marketing and that book and those 12, then you could say, okay, look at it from that
Yeah,
standpoint.
you can give it the exact framework you want it to work within. Ask it to give it to you in a specific output style you want. Ask
Right.
it to put it in a table if you want. And even just strategically, like one of the things I've done is totally different than that, but I took my LinkedIn posts on my own page and I just expanded them. Like I went to the post feed on
Right.
LinkedIn, I expanded all of them out and I started taking screenshots of my posts are long, so it was only a few at a
Right.
time. If you had short posts, you could do it much shorter. Put it into Vision and asked it to turn it into a table that had the topic in 3 words or less, what the topic is, a 2 sentence summary of the post, and the number of comments, the number of reactions, the number of shares for each post. And so like I got a table back that like showed me all of my content that I had created, because it could actually read it and it could see the number of reactions to it, it could see the number of comments because it's all there. And it took a matter of seconds to get like a table of all my LinkedIn stuff. Now you could take that and you could, I didn't do this, but like if you wanted to do this for like the social media of a company you're interviewing with, for example, you could potentially do that and then ask it to analyze what type of posts perform the best. You could ask it for different things in that table and then to run that analysis.
Right. And
So
why that you think that they perform the best. The
yeah.
other thing would be, I was just thinking again, you're a new CMO, you have a strong CEO who's been out there and expressed a certain fondness for an author or a point of view. Again, you can take that and almost create that character
Mhm.
and use that to assess various things. Oh my gosh. Okay. So we're now merged, we're past copywriting, we're past art directions, we're into all sorts of other ways that you can use these tools. Let's talk about a couple. We don't have enough time to go through one, but things that you're finding that are just so helpful to you.
For the Vision tool, or what are
Or
we?
no, just in general, in terms of,
Okay. You
yeah,
know,
whether it's strategic planning or,
I use it for literally everything at this point, that it's hard. Like when people are like, what are 1 or 2 things you use it for? I'm like, what are 1 or 2 things I don't use it for? Yeah,
right.
I find it so helpful for literally everything I do. And I operate from this philosophy of the first thing I ask myself before I jump into something is, how can AI assist me with this? And I try to apply that every single time. Sometimes it takes me a little bit longer because I use AI. I'm not going to lie. Sometimes it saves me 15 minutes, and sometimes
Right.
it saves me 8 hours or 10
Right.
hours or 20 hours. And so I just kind of am in this mindset of let me try, unless I am consciously making the decision. I do not want to use AI for this because either I internally just like really want to write this myself, or I actually want to make sure like my writing abilities don't atrophy. So like every now and then I make myself, I love writing. So I'm like every now and then I'm like, you better write this yourself because you don't want to forget how to do this.
Right.
But yeah, I find it useful. The answer to that is I find it useful for everything. And I think that that's the mindset shift that a lot of people need, is like to start going, how can I apply this to all the things? Because if you save 5 minutes 10 times a day, you've just saved almost an hour out of your day.
Yeah. And and
So
and for everything that a CMO does, I mean, you know, I get obviously, I want a tool built into Microsoft Outlook that reads my email and says, okay, do I need to respond? Do I need to, what
yeah,
is there a generic response that I have? There's all sorts of things that I haven't seen yet
yeah,
that would be a time suck, right? I'd like it to look at my calendar and say, I really don't, you have these 10 meetings coming up, automatically prepare for them. But I do think, for example, I don't have a prep call with any prospective huddler or prospective podcast guest without doing a trial interview with them. You're Drew Neiser, you have this, you're the host of the podcast. Here, what kind of questions would I ask? I don't use those questions typically, but they make it so much easier for me to get to I now know what generic is. I know what every other podcast guest would ask. So that's one thing. And it can, 1 out of 10, I goes, oh, I didn't think of that.
Yeah.
Right. And so it's so helpful. So whether it's interview prep, I used it for travel planning. We had just got back from Barcelona, and I wanted to it was funny. I said, okay, think about the top 10 things to do in Barcelona, organize it by various areas, give me a lunch recommendations, tell me what the time difference is between each place, right? And it laid out a pretty interesting schedule, which we didn't actually do exactly, but it was still helpful.
I've used it for a couple of trips now, and it is an amazing travel advisor because you can tell it exactly what you like to do, don't like to do, how long you have, and ask it. It was giving both my trips were like road trips, and it was writing out step-by-step, turn-by-turn directions for little like driving tours of areas and finding gems we would never have found ourselves. So I love it for that. But yeah, like literally all the things I just use for all of the things. Also, one of my favorite things to do is if you need to set, this is like more personal life, although I think it could apply professionally too. If you have like an annoying situation, you need to just send an email to deal with. So you could go in again to that voice app in ChatGPT, like the ChatGPT app on your phone, do the voice, explain the situation, and just ask it to spin it into an email to deal with the thing. And so in 3 minutes, because like that stuff's not public facing content you need to be like obsessing over.
Right.
You don't need fancy prompts for that. You can literally just explain verbally, this is what's happening. I need you to turn it into an email. Do this, hit submit, and then go to your computer and copy and paste that email out. So I did it the other day to deal with something in my apartment, and something that would have been really annoying and frustrating to send a leasing office email took 3 minutes and no energy. So,
all right. So this is a big one, folks. Annoying emails. These are the emails that make you sweat. These are the ones that you write the draft of, and then you leave it there for half an hour and you go back to it. These are the ones where you're worried you might upset someone, or you have bad news that you have to share with someone. Those emails, which are a huge time suck, at least for me, because I don't want to hurt anybody's feelings. Boy, what a tip that is.
It is so good too. If you need to communicate an email with somebody who has some type of a difference in their communication preferences, whether that is I'm Southern and I'm dealing with somebody who is Northern and super direct and like we like to talk around things, or I'm neurotypical and I'm dealing with somebody neurodivergent, or the opposite, or whatever, or I needed to send emails to people in Israel, and the communication styles are different. You can give it, this is my natural communication style, this is their communication style, or this is their culture that they're coming out of, this is the context of our relationship dynamic. And here's what I would like to say, but I need you to write this in a way that's going to be well received by that person, given that they are located in this other country and they're not American like I am, or whatever it is. And it can spin something instantaneously to be fitting for the actual environment of who the recipient is.
And then you're spending your time, in this case, editing and not drafting, and just painting yourself over and over again to try to get the words perfectly. Okay. We're running out of time. There's so many other things that are coming up in terms of advanced data analysis, or just something as simple as looking at a website and say, hey, create the color palette that we're using. All sorts of things that we're going to have to do another show on in 6 months, but obviously we will do that. You are one of our top go-to resources for generative AI. Who are some of yours?
So I'll give you two that I love. One is a man named Ethan Mollick. He is a researcher. I don't want to say the wrong institution. He's at the Wharton School. He's a professor at the Wharton School, and this is like his space. So he's one of the people that does the actual research studies on this and shares a ton of that and lives and breathes this stuff. So
how do you spell Mollick?
Mollick.
Okay, I had that wrong two places. Okay, yeah. Ethan.
So Ethan Mollick is definitely like my number one social media follow. He's on both LinkedIn and I believe he's on X. God, I can't
Okay.
call that Twitter.
Yeah. So LinkedIn,
Um,
folks, LinkedIn.
yeah, LinkedIn.
Okay.
Yeah. And then the other person I absolutely love is a woman named Rachel Woods.
Uh-huh.
And she has a group called the AI Exchange. She provides a ton of that's like a paid community, but like she posts a ton on LinkedIn and TikTok as well.
Awesome.
Absolutely awesome. So those are my two go-tos. Honestly, though, the vast majority, personal conversation, community. Like I don't follow a lot of people on social. Like I don't trust most of what's on social, to be honest. It's mostly people who have no idea what they're talking about, talking like they do.
Right. Yeah. Or probably using generative AI without their IP or without testing
Yeah.
it. Okay. All right. Well, we're running out of time, but two do's and one don't for CMOs when training their teams on taking advantage of Gen AI.
Okay, two to do. So the first one would be before you start projects, ask them, how are you going to use AI for this? So like when you're assigning the project, ask them that and point out ways that they can if they're missing in their blind spot. And then when they're finished, ask, how did you use AI for this? That's the first one. The second one is create a culture that celebrates AI wins and failures. So just using the AI where you're lifting up and praising publicly, or however people like the praise, but especially publicly, because then everybody, sees it and knows this is appreciated. When somebody does something awesome with AI, point it out, celebrate it. This is a win that everybody should aspire to. And when somebody fails with AI, also celebrate that, like, they used it, they tried, and that's okay. And now you're going to learn. And like next time something, like, what did you learn from this? That was awesome. So those two things for getting your team to adopt AI. The don't is not going to be about adopting AI. It's just a thing that is in my head of like, please stop doing this with AI. Not necessarily this group at all, but when you see somebody's LinkedIn post and you want to make a comment on it, do not copy and paste that LinkedIn post into ChatGPT, ask it to write a comment, and then send the comment without actually reading the comment. And if that comment is the same words as the post, just repackaged in a new metaphor, do not use it.
Yeah.
Everybody knows. Everybody knows that you're commenting with AI. Like, we gotta stop. We gotta cut this out.
Yeah, exactly. Okay. Yeah. So at that moment in time, if you're going to actually comment as a human, be a human.
Yeah. I
Right.
mean, rule of thumb, if you're commenting on LinkedIn, be human. If you're posting on LinkedIn, totally fine to use AI. But
Right. Assuming it's your IP, right?
well,
That's
yeah,
it.
if it's your idea. Yeah.
It's your idea. Produce faster. Okay.
But those comments should be human. Engage as a person. Nobody wants the AI talking to the AI.
Yeah, that's no fun. Okay. Yes, amen to that. Okay. So first of all, thank you so much, Nicole. And we're very polite here. So maybe I'll thank you twice because I want to be better than I would with the machine. But where can people find you? And we'll include the LinkedIn, your LinkedIn thing in chat here. But where can they find you? And what would they hire you for if you happen to have any capacity right now?
I could always squeeze people in. So LinkedIn, my website is NicoleLeffer.com. So it's super easy. Those are the two best places. And I'm also on TikTok, although that's not super marketing specific. That's more just the place that the random stream of consciousness about AI comes out. For work, I am working with CMOs and their teams to help them adopt AI. So the main thing I do is work with the CMO to understand pain points and like what's going on, what they want to do with AI, or maybe they don't, they just know they need AI, and then design custom trainings to teach their teams the skills and the use cases, or, just a few use cases that use those skills specific to the company. Also do some generic trainings as well, if you don't want to go that custom.
By the way, as I mentioned at the top of the hour, at least 3 huddlers have hired Nicole and so far, at least one of them reported back extremely positive. So
Yeah.
4 gold stars out of 4. Anyway, Nicole, again, thank you so much for joining you. I can't wait to follow what else you come up with in the next 6 months. And to all the huddlers here, hang on for a second while I give you a quick update on what's going on in Huddle Land. But Nicole, nice to see you.
Thank you so much. This was great. I really appreciate it.